Welcome back. So today we're going to get back into her after a short break. We're going to work on our pistons. So we're going to pull the wrist pins out, remove the piston itself from the connecting rod. We'll check the bearing inside here and also the pin itself to make sure everything's good. I'm going to pull the rings off, clean the ring grooves and the oil holes, and also because this is a steel piston, we're going to run this through the wire wheel. Clean the top, clean the very top edge of the piston where all the combustion starts, and hopefully there's no bad pitting or cracks, and we'll be good to go. First thing we got to do is get these keeper rings out. So we can remove the wrist pin. Definitely not hard at all. And then we can just tap this wrist pin out. I'm being a little stubborn. Connecting rod. I think there's a little carbon built up on the edge of this piston, causing this thing to stick a little. Or stick a lot. It's kind of annoying. There she is. You can see a little bit of lines on here, but there is no physically no edge or anything I can feel. So those are really nice. So we'll use the same wrist pins. And we're going to assume that the bearings are good as well too. It was a nice tight fit. There's no high edges. So we'll just make sure these are really clean when they go back together. And just like everything else on this engine as well too, as we're taking it apart, we're making sure it all goes back together the exact same way it came apart. So I took a file and I made just a, there's just a little notch, a little hair of a notch. I did edge of that piston right on the bottom of the skirt. And that coincides with the bolts here on the connecting rods on the 45 side. So then I always know they're going back together the same way. So now we have to take the rings out of these pistons here. I got a pick. Just gonna open these up and peel them off. Before I get started on this one, this is number 3 cylinder. This is the one that was so carboned up that I was surprised that anything could get through it. And I just noticed something here. So these are the rings here. This top compression ring, these are the normal gaps between them. But if I turn this around, this ring is broken. The top compression ring on this piston is cracked. And there it is there. And this is the number 3 cylinder that was so carboned up and coked up that I'm surprised anything made it through it. I'm very fortunate that this never made a score or a mark inside the cylinder lining. So this could have actually happened right away. Is when I first started this tractor up. Maybe this ring was seized in there and broke right on very first startup, causing all my blow by. But the other side of it is it could have been like that for a very long time, and that's why it was fully carboned up. So anyway, we'll continue on. So as you can tell, these rings are really brittle. There's no strength left into them at all. And we are putting new ones on, so it's just as easy to break them off. So here we are. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be polishing the top of these pistons, cleaning down to the first oil ring with the wire wheel. Then we'll gently clean these parts. And then inside here, which are fairly clean, these are all the oil holes. So the oil that's coming up the side of the cylinders below the rings. This gives it a place to drain the back down into the crankcase. So we'll go over these, clean the goop off them first. The carbon's all nice and soft from the deep creep I sprayed in there. We'll clean it off first, and then we'll polish them up. So here we are with our cleaned piston. There's no pits or anything in the top of this thing. This is excellent shape. And there's no big scores in or on the top at all. So also what we're checking for as well is all on the edge of this piston, because these are a cast steel piston. We're looking for any fractures or cracks that may be working their way in the edge. And we are free from all cracks. Now all the ring grooves, you can see that they are a little carboned up in there. So we're going to take a pick and we're going to scratch these all out. And then just the same thing goes inside the oil ring here as well too. We'll use a drill bit that's this size just to scrape the edges to make sure all the flakes are out, because we don't want any of them kind of falling down in on top of where our wrist pin goes. And then when that's done, then I'll actually take one of the rings that are broken, because it's the right size, and we'll use that to gouge the ring groove as well too, to make sure it's all clean and everything's going to move free. So we'll get on that. I know this is a little bit boring, but unfortunately this is part of the process as well. So we'll try not to leave anything out. There we go. All the piston grooves are clean. You can see by the rag, even though they looked clean after I buffed them up, how much crap actually come out of there. And that's just all the small bits that are stuck down in behind the rings, not allowing them to seat properly. You know, we're closed and open. We don't want them to get stuck. And you saw me drill these holes. I wasn't actually drilling metal of any kind, just using the drill bit itself, almost like a little smooth file, to clean the carbon out of all these holes, just so the oil can pass back through, no problem. And we didn't want any pieces that would fall down onto our connecting rod pin or get stuck in these oil holes. There's top and bottom as well, you can see in there. So anyway, that's one piston done. Everything's good. We'll give this thing a nice little clean out here, clean off the wrist pin as well, and lube it up real good. We'll put this back together. And then we only have 3 more to do. This took longer than I thought, but like I said, you know, unfortunately it's a little bit boring, but it's all part of the process. So I'm not going to take you through the other 3, but we'll set this back together, and I'll be back in a bit. So now all 4 pistons are done. Back together, everything looks good. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pull the caps off the bottom end here as well, where they go onto the crank. So we'll pull the caps off, remove the upper and lower bearing, make sure there's no dirt or any debris that's caught in behind here when I took them apart, and also the channels that the little grooves fit in for the cups, to make sure they only go back on the same way. We're going to remove all that, clean it up, inspect everything, make sure there's no cracks in these bearings, and then we'll go from there. Come on. There you go. See if we can focus. So that's the bearing itself that rides on the connecting rod. Now these are notched, so they can only go back in the same way. The only thing is that this could get swapped for the top one by mistake because the notches are offset. So we're just going to be careful and make sure that bottom goes back on bottom, top goes back on top. And we're going to go through, we're going to double check all these, looking for fractures or cracks. The same thing with the bearings. When they come off, they all came off in one piece. And they all look really good, but we're just going to double check them all. So everything looks perfect with the first one. Everything's good. No cracks, no scores. You'll see this little ground edge here where they come together. Not 100% sure what that is, but every single one has it. So I don't know if it's a machine that takes the edge off, I guess, when the bearings are made because there's a lip there or what. But every single bearing has that little edge ground into it on every one of them. It's smooth. I can't feel any difference. There's no difference in texture or anything with it. So everything looks good. We'll put this one back together so everything stays where it should be. We'll continue on with the other three, and we'll be back in a minute. So there we go. We got 4 sets of pistons, connecting rods, and bearings. All good. No cracks, no burrs, no big scores in them. You know, this thing is said 1959, so the little bit of wear you see at the oil inlets is normal. There's no large divots that you can feel by hand or scores, so I'm happy with that. So the next thing is to clean all the crap out underneath this thing. And I got to get up under there, and now it's time to start cleaning that crank off and cleaning out the journals from any dust that might have went down through, even though I did cover them with rags and they're still covered up. I still want to make sure that there's no dirt trapped in those journals at all. Now we still don't have rings for the pistons. They are coming. I did check with the supplier out of Ontario, and he assures me they are available. It's just taken him a little while to get them. Through Case itself, it was hard to find, but a horrendous price. So unfortunately, they're going aftermarket, which is okay. They're all spec'd out the exact same. Top ring is a little bit different, got a different angle on the pitch of the, I guess the sweep you call it. And then there's 2 more compression wings, and there'll be a 2-piece oil ring. Now, the 2-piece oil ring, there is a possibility it's going to come as 3-piece. It's a little bit undefined in the book, depending on if it was the 58 or 59. For some reason, on the actual Case manual, it doesn't show a difference, but on the actual pistons, when I pull them out, these had 2 different styles. Here's one style of an oil ring. Let's see if I can focus on that. There we go. These 2 go together. The one hanging on the bottom there is the inner. This is the outer. The secondary style is this thing here. It gets a small coil ring on the inside that fits in that groove right by my thumb here on the right. And those are the oil ones. Now these are really carboned up. Quite bad. The other style were more clean. But for some reason in this engine, piston number 1 was this style. Piston number 2 was the coil. Number 3 was this style. And then number 4 is the coil. For some reason, they were mismatched. I don't know why that is. I don't see anything online that tells me that'd be a problem. But what's coming should be the 2-piece coil style. So we're going to clean out from underneath the tractor here, get up under there, and start cleaning those crank journals. So there we are up underneath the tractor now. Oh, sorry about the compressor as usual. So what we have here, this is the oil pump. And then these here, where the rags are the journals for the connecting rods. Other than a little bit of dust on them, they are perfect. Still got oil on them, which is good. So what we're going to do now is just going to remove these rags, clean them really good. Actually, we're going to rub off all the lobes here. We'll clean off all the lobes first, just to make sure there's no big chunks of dirt sitting on them on the whole way around them, on the cam. And then we'll clean up the journals really good. Make sure there's no debris hanging that might have come down through the liners. And then we'll cover these back up. We'll rub a little light layer of oil on them. And then we'll cover them back up with the rags. And the same with the pistons and these rods. This is just a preliminary clean. Once the rings come and everything's ready to go back together, we will be cleaning them one more time, and then we'll lubing them up really good before we put it all back together. So anyway, it's almost impossible for me to video under here while I clean these. So we'll get them done up, and then we'll come back. So it really was a pretty easy job. Hopefully I'm sorry if this video flips around, but I'm upside down and trying to hold the camera at an angle so the G sensor doesn't change it. But yeah, so they're perfect. They're nice and smooth. No, what do you call them, I guess, checks in them or spots in them. They're all really good. So I've cleaned all the way around. I've cleaned off the top of the lobes, so there's no bits of debris in there. You can see the liners. Nice liners ready to go up there. So crank is done. Pistons, connecting rods are done and cleaned. Cylinders are cleaned and honed. Guess the next step is I got to clean the oil pan, clean out the suction oil filter, and then clean all the old gasket off where the oil pan went. And also where this transmission transition went. There was that big L bracket. Got to clean that as well too. So those are going to be things that I do off camera. Get the oil pan clean, oil filter clean, scrape off all this gasket. And then that'll be the end of today. There's nothing else I can do until I get those rings in. Well, I'm sure there's little things I can do, but I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to do this all in order. The one thing I did forget, and I just remembered, I have a broken off bolt that was holding on that pan. So I'm going to have to get a pair of vice grips on that. Hopefully it'll come out easy. But get that out, clean up all the surfaces, and hopefully by next weekend we'll have some rings to put in here. So as usual, thanks for watching. Sorry it was a little bit boring, but it's the whole process of rebuilding this tractor. Have a good week.